Welcome back to the Fly of Her podcast. I'm your host, Maya.
And I'm Aitana. Thank you for joining us for today's episode.
Today's guest is an airline pilot whose aviation journey spans over a decade, from being a private pilot to flight instructor to working in corporate aviation and cargo operations.
Along the way, she's gained a deep understanding of how performance, health, recovery, and decision making are all closely connected, especially in demanding flying environments.
Those experiences inspired her to create FlyStrong Performance, a platform focused on helping pilots build sustainable, healthy, and long-lasting careers.
Welcome to the podcast, Kristina. We're happy to have you here with us.
Hi, thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I can't wait to talk a little bit more about work, career, and any questions you guys have.
Thank you so much, Kristina. So, Kristina, a decade in aviation is an incredible milestone. How did your journey begin, and what exactly have you been involved with over the years?
So my journey began when I was 20. I was in college. Well, I guess it began a little bit before that. My dad is an airline pilot, and when I grew up, we used to take a lot of trips to Europe because his family's from the Czech Republic. So I always admired the way that the airlines kind of connect the world, and I started to love traveling in college. And then I got more into flying when he would take me up in his RV6. So that kind of inspired me to take lessons. And then along the way, I did actually end up finishing my degree in college in art. And I also got all of my flight ratings and licenses. And then by the time I graduated college, I started flight instructing. So that was my first job as a pilot. And then I went into corporate aviation, and now I'm flying for a cargo airline.
Did you say you got a college degree in art?
Yeah, yeah.
How did you go from art to aviation?
So I think I've always been really creative. Like right now I still kind of bring that creativity out in my social media. That's really why I really love working on it. But my studies were more art history. So I did a couple exchange programs, and I've always been into studying cultures, different people, things like that. And it's kind of helped me as far as my aviation career because I feel like I can work with a lot of different types of crew or people from around the world. But yeah, I still really appreciate art, especially here in Miami. We have a great like contemporary and modern art culture here. So yeah.
That's really cool. And you also mentioned the fact that your dad is also a commercial pilot. Have you ever flown with him?
I have flown with him. Yeah. I flew not for work, but in his RV6, and then he also has a couple of airplanes in Salt Lake City, so yeah.
That is
That's
pretty
really
cool.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool. That must be so amazing for the both of you to fly together. Growing up, did you always have in your mind that you'd want to be a pilot? Because you did study art, and that's quite different from aviation. Did you have in your mind what you want to do? Were you quite open to maybe I could be a
Um,
pilot like my dad, or but I quite like art, or I don't know. What was your thought process?
Honestly, when I was younger, I just remember having a lot of different interests. I was always into sports though. Like I remember when I was in high school and younger, I really thrived in like I did competitive cheerleading, I did track. I did all of these different sports. That's why I do CrossFit now. But that was always what I leaned towards in like my early education days. So I didn't exactly have a set career path until I kind of got until I graduated high school. And then when I started taking different classes in college, that's when I started to realize that flying was my favorite thing. And it really went along with the traveling aspect. Like I did always like to travel. I appreciate different cultures and art, obviously. So this job, initially I got into because I wanted to be able to travel more and I wanted to have that kind of lifestyle. So that was my initial draw to flying. But then when I actually started taking lessons, I really enjoyed the way um, that the job requires a lot of forward thinking, and you're always learning and growing. And that was also something I really liked because I'm a very like goal oriented person, so I like to know that I'm improving in my work every day. And then I also like how exciting it is. The job is just a lot more fun than most most other jobs. It's different every day. So
Yeah, it is. I definitely can agree on that. So, Christina, you mentioned that you've seen several sides of aviation, instructing, corporate, cargo, and now airlines. Which transition challenged you the most and why?
I would say the transition that challenged me the most was probably going from, flight instructing to my first type rating in the beach jet. I think there was just a big learning curve with the aircraft going from a Skyhawk, flying that every day, into my first jet. I remember the first day I sat in ground school, everybody was on their second type rating or third type rating, and I was sitting there and I didn't even know what a thrust reverser was. And I had all these things that it was a big learning curve, and I had to really catch up on my studying to get, up to par, but it was really a really exciting experience, and I'll never forget it.
And also, what is a beach jet? Just out of
Oh, beach
curiosity.
jet. So it's a small, corporate jet. It seats up to 8 people, and
Oh,
yeah, that was my first jet that I got my type rating in, so
nice.
So, Christina, you are now an airline pilot, but what misconceptions do people have about cargo flying versus passenger operations?
Um, I think that people assume that cargo flying is drastically different from flying passengers, but it's actually quite similar in the way that the operations are handled. It basically runs like any other airline, um, and the only difference really is what we're flying. So obviously, we don't have to deal with passengers, but we still have jump seaters sometimes. So sometimes we'll have a few passengers, they're pilots, but um, I think that's the biggest misconception. And then I think the other misconception is that cargo pilots are not social, or we're not like we don't wanna work with people. That's just not true.
And out of curiosity, being a cargo pilot, what has been the coolest thing you have flown? Like, have you ever flown like live animals or other aircraft, or I don't know, have you ever flown anything quite cool?
I'm trying to think. Most of the time, we fly a lot of produce and flowers and things like that. One time I flew eggs. That was different. So, yeah, I remember it was funny because the way that they labeled it was, like, fragile, and they put this, like, funny picture on the side, so, that's why I remember it, I don't know.
I don't know, do you have to be more like careful with your landings and going through turbulence when you're flying eggs? Or is it just like pretty much the same? You just treat it like you're flying anything else? Or is that extra caution because what you're flying is so fragile and could break?
As far as things like landing, I mean, we always try to make a smooth landing no matter what, but, the temperature is something that we always look out for. Obviously, the temperature is something that they tell us, beforehand if the cabin needs to be a certain temperature based on what we're flying. That's pretty much the main thing.
And is cargo flying, is that more long haul flying rather than short haul, or how does it work?
Right now, my company contracts mostly with Amazon, so, we do a little bit of DHL flying as well, but Amazon's kind of, uh, what I've done mostly, and it's usually domestic, so a lot of kind of coast to coast flying, South America, a little bit of Panama and Puerto Rico. So I don't do a lot of, flights over to Europe or anything like that.
How do you recover after difficult trips, physically and mentally, and how does fatigue subtly show up in pilots before it becomes a safety issue?
So I think the way that fatigue usually shows up, is for a lot of people, it's usually like overall mood and like sociability. At least that's what I've noticed. Not necessarily a decline in performance because I don't ever fly with pilots that are not performing well. Like we all are able to self assess and we know if we're too fatigued, we're not going to fly. But I would say just mood is a big one. And then the way that I recover from like jet lag or a long flight, I usually will do some type of light movement, so yoga or meditation. Um, I like to take find a hot tub or a hot bath. There's something about temperature, whether it's like a cold plunge or hot, it can be very therapeutic. Um, Sometimes if I have a longer layover, I'll go and get like a facial or something. Like a facial or massage. So kind of like the typical stress relief that you would think of. Um, and I find it's really important to like if I am not able to sleep right away, like finding something that's going to put me into that relaxed state to where I'm ready to have like a nice long sleep. So those are the things I kind of do to wind down.
And when you do long haul flights, do you tend to like walk around during the flight, or do you have to like stay seated the whole flight?
Most of my flights are no longer than 4 hours, so I'm usually staying seated. I will get up to get like a tea or coffee sometimes, at the bathroom, obviously, but I don't really do. I know other pilots I've seen do like stretches and things like that. Um, I personally don't really do that, but it's definitely possible. The 767 has a really big cockpit, so there's plenty of space back there.
So, Christina, we want to talk more about Fly Strong Performance. Now, please tell us what Fly Strong Performance is. It grew out of lived experience. And tell us what gap in the aviation culture were you trying to fill when you set up Fly Strong Performance?
Yeah, so the idea was, I mean, I've seen a lot of other people online, pilots, as well as like other influencers. They make workout programs, but they're kind of like one size fits all. And I wanted to work on something that is achievable for flight crew and something that works with the busy schedules. But on top of that, I've kind of grown it into something where I want to teach people how to make their own goals and their own habits based on some tools that I'm building in a course that I'm working on right now. So instead of me actually coaching somebody one on one, it's going to be more like I teach somebody how to be their own coach on the road. So uh, so yeah, that's kind of what it grew out of, because I think you have to be really flexible when you're traveling and you're trying to stay fit. Like every day is going to look a little different, so it's a lot of again self-assessing and then also assessing your environment and then how you feel and what resources do you have like around the hotel or in the city that you're in. So I've also started on the page, I'm starting to rate the gyms that are in different cities. So right now I've been home a lot, so I'm in Miami. So I'm starting with Miami and I'm rating all of the gyms in my town and kind of giving them like a, yeah, like approve or disapprove, just like my opinion on them. But I'm going to start doing it also when I go to different cities. So I have like a huge collection of like reviews and things that I can say are good for the traveling athlete and are not. So,
And how do you maintain, obviously before you were training for High Rocks and also maintaining Fly Strong and also maintaining work as well? How do you manage that?
I think it's really important to, I personally have a tendency to do too much at once. And I've started to be better about segmenting my days and compartmentalizing my schedule, like always having, I'll schedule beforehand, but sometimes things change. So you have to like be proactive and things like that. But I always make sure I don't overload my day. And I like to work in like short spurts. So for example, like if I have something on my Instagram page that I want to work on, I'll probably be working on it like on the way to the airplane, like waiting for the van, getting to the airplane sometimes can take up to an hour. So I'll use that hour sitting in the van on my phone working on things. So I like to kind of work smarter and not harder and make sure I'm not working endless hours throughout the day.
And what does your day-to-day look like as a cargo pilot who flies short, so probably multiple sectors a day? What does your day-to-day look like, or the average day for you? What does it look like?
So they're always different. And with my company, like we have options to bid different trips and different lengths of trips and things like that. Um, a trip that I like to bid, I guess that would be like my typical preferred one is like I'll fly to Bogota from Miami in the morning. Well, the trip actually starts in Cincinnati. So the day before, I'll commute from Miami to Cincinnati and then I'll get there at like I don't know, 10 p.m., let's say. And then the next day I'll go. um, from Cincinnati to Miami in the evening, and then the next day, I'll go Bogota or Miami to Bogota and back, so that's, like, a pretty long day, and then the next day, have, like, a long layover in Miami, which for me, that's home, so I'll stay home for a day and get an extra day off, and then the next day, I'll do it again. I'll go, like, uh, get up at, like, 7 AM, fly to Bogota, maybe be home around, like, 7 PM, so or in Miami, that's not my base, but for me, I'm home, so that's kind of the typical day, but some of them run through the night, so sometimes I'll have days where I'm, like, starting work at 10 PM, and then I'm ending at, like, 7 AM with, like, a 2-hour gap in between flights, so it really just varies.
And how do you manage to, like, um, fix your sleep pattern so that you can sleep after having a night shift?
Honestly, it's really complicated. I find something that I have to do though is like as somebody who wants to be kind of productive all the time, I'll find myself setting alarms for no reason. Like I'll be on my day off and I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to sleep all day," or like, "I want to go out with a friend and um, I want to be up by this time so I can go do these activities at home." But sometimes the day's lost on sleep and I just have to accept it. Hey, today I might sleep all day and that's what it is. So that's just like a little thing, not setting an alarm unless I absolutely have to and just letting myself sleep if I gotta sleep a long time.
Yeah, I resonate with that. I have like 10,000 alarms a day.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, and I think
literally so
sometimes, like, if you work any type of night shifts, you always get a little bit of, like, FOMO, like, fear of missing out in the daylight hours. So, I don't know, I think you just have to be like, "Well, it is what it is. I wake up when I wake up."
the thing is, I don't even work night shift. I don't even work a night shift, but I still have like so many
Yeah.
messages on my phone. It's just so I know at what time, I know what time of day we're at, and I know what I
Yeah.
need to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Meanwhile,
so for me,
Yeah,
sometimes I just have to let you
anyway.
have to let it go, just gotta just, say, "Alright, now is rest time." It could be 5-hour nap, it could be a 10-hour nap, we don't know, but
wow, guys. No, I'm
so
very much the opposite, I'm not gonna lie. I don't work night shifts either, no, but my days are always structured, whether it's a weekend or a weekday. I just have
Yeah,
it.
totally structured, definitely structured, but I have
yeah.
I get up
alarms.
early though.
What did you say?
I get up early in the morning naturally anyway. I just get up and
Oh
just
no. If I don't have an alarm to wake me up, I'm likely not gonna wake up.
Yeah.
Genuinely. That's why it's really important for me to have these alarms, because if I don't have an alarm, then I'm not gonna wake up anytime soon.
Yeah.
Honestly.
No, fair enough.
Anyway.
Anyways, so for those who are, obviously, for those who are aspiring pilots in the future, what factors should a trainee pilot actually prioritize when choosing a training route? Should it be cost, speed, quality, or location?
Um, I would say always quality, so, I mean, no don't go for a cheaper flight school if it has bad bad reviews or, like, a bad reputation. Um, Definitely look at quality, but then also, like, how is your flight training gonna fit in with your life? Like, are you the type of person where you wanna get all of your ratings done in a year and you're gonna do 100% full time, you're gonna study for, like, 5 hours a day, you're gonna have a flight every day? Or are you working? If you're working, you might not wanna go for the fast track way. You might need, like, maybe an independent flight instructor. But I would say at the end of the day, finding a flight instructor that you actually like because you're spending a lot of money and there's no reason that, you know, you can't just change flight instructors if you know, or not change, but look for a good one, Find somebody that you actually like, maybe like a friend of a friend or somebody that you were referred to. Um, it always helps. And most flight instructors are really good, but when it comes to learning, you always want to have somebody where like the energy's good and it facilitates like progress as quick as possible. So,
And after you did your art degree, how did you decide what route you was gonna take to become a pilot?
So after I finished my degree, I knew that I was gonna become a pilot before I finished my degree, but I still wanted to finish it because I don't like starting things and not finishing them. So I was like, I'm gonna finish my art degree. I'm gonna do this exchange program. And when I came back, and I graduated college, I decided that I wanted to be a pilot full time. And then that's when I got my flight instructor license. That took me a few months. Um, and then once I started flying, I just stuck with it. During COVID times, I had a little break there where like the flight school was really slow. I didn't have a lot of work and I was kind of feeling like discouraged because of, you know, the COVID things that were happening. Um, but I stuck with it and I persevered because I really just like it as a job. I really love flying and I still like traveling. So that was always the main thing. So
And in retrospect, do you wish you studied something more technical at university, or are you quite happy that you studied art? And do you think it helped you in any way, shape, or form in your career as a pilot?
I think it's really helped me in ways that I didn't expect because in art school, we always had to come up with whatever we made, we always had to come up with a concept and a backing behind our piece of artwork, right? So it built my communication skills to where I was able to use those to kind of build my social media. I think it really helped me like with the video editing as well. That was something I learned in art school. So it was just communication and creativity and things like that. Um, it really set like a good route for me. Um, and then it also kind of opened me up, like I said, to other cultures and things like that, so it gave me a better worldview, so I'm, like, a better person to have in the workplace because of that, um, but, yeah, I really, don't regret majoring in art. I think at the time, it was right for me, but I'm now pursuing an MBA, a Master's in Business Administration in Aviation online with Embry-Riddle, so it actually was a precursor to that. Even though I switched to business, it still counted, so
That's pretty cool. Congratulations.
thanks.
So, Christina, do you think women experience pressure to overperform or out endure in aviation? And how can the industry better support long, healthy careers, especially for women?
Um, I think in the beginning, maybe I had a little bit of a, like, competitive nature at work, but it quickly turned into, uh, learning crew resource management and how beneficial it is to utilize the people that are flying with you, and not try to take everything on your own shoulders because that never turns out well. Um, but I think also the way that we can support especially women in the industry to where they don't feel like they have to outperform men or outperform because they're a minority is just having those really strict standards set so that there's never any bias in training. And I think that's something that I really like working with an airline is that, the standards are the standards and everybody's kind of at an even playing field there. So it's not really something that uh, it affects me in my everyday life at an airline. Um, I think maybe in my early training, yeah, I think maybe I experienced some things where um, I felt like I had to like outperform uh, my male peers, but like I said, that quickly went away.
And also, previously, you mentioned that your dad was a pilot. Was there anything that you particularly learned from him, or tips he gave you in regards to the career or life as a pilot that has particularly stuck with you, or you hold dearly to your heart to this day?
Yeah, so he still flies for Delta. He's pretty senior now, but he told me when I was really early in my flight training, I think I was really um I don't want to say I was just a little bit too nice to everybody all the time. And I think he kind of said, Christina, it's okay to be a little bit assertive sometimes. Um, it's okay to be the leader and like the boss. And he when he said that, it kind of like stuck with me because I felt like after that, I always thought about like, okay, am I being assertive? Am I standing up for myself? Am I being a good leader, which is like the number one thing that I always ask myself, like, am I being a good leader? And um, yeah, that was just a small piece of advice that stuck with me.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I mean, it's good to be nice. It's nice to be nice, right? But it's
Yeah.
also very important to have boundaries and to put them in place and to enforce them and to be assertive and
Yeah.
to, yeah, put your foot down at sometimes. So yeah, I think that's brilliant advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
And lastly, Christina, if you could go back to your early cargo flying days, what would you do differently?
I would say I would probably balance my work life and my home life a little bit better because I think looking back, like when I had it was a new job, I was really excited and I was always willing to like pick up extra trips and like fly more. And I was away from home so much that I feel like maybe I missed out on like a few family gatherings that I wish I would have just taken off and gone to, you know what I mean? So that's probably like the only thing I would do differently.
I think that actually is very, very normal actually, because it happens that when you get a new job, you tend to get very, very excited and feel like you should kind of overperform a little bit. But then like when you realize that you need to like calm down a little bit, then you're like, okay, let's calm down and let's not try do too much. But definitely is a good learning curve to learn.
Yeah, it's always, if you're like a high performing person, which both you guys are, I'm sure, it's easy to like do too much and you always want to ask yourself like, is this sustainable? Like, is the
Yeah.
pace I'm going at sustainable? So it's different for everybody, but
So that is it for today. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Fly With Her podcast.
Don't forget to tune in, take off, and fly with her.
See you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.